Hey everybody, welcome back to Human Reaction, your weekly source for independent commentary on political news and culture, where it's always our mission to arm you with the tools that you need to cut through media misdirection and resist the mono-narrative. So glad to have you back. We have a killer show today. On deck, Democrats now know what the rest of us have been knowing for the last 3 years. Joe Biden ain't doing so good. The debate last night was just the latest example of that. We will get into it. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is now freed after over 5 years in a UK prison. We'll talk all about the conditions surrounding his release, the fact that he's back in Australia with his wife and children. We're overjoyed to hear that. Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson murders an Aussie journalist on stage, and my gosh, it is so hilarious to watch. We're going to watch that one with you. And 2 important Supreme Court decisions came down today that will actually strike really meaningful blows to the regulatory state. And we are thrilled to hear that. So all in all, it's a great news day. Kyle, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. And I just want to remind everybody to like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a review on whichever platform you're on. You know, do the thing on whichever platform. They're all different. But also thanks to our members who are the lifeblood that kind of keep this thing going right now. And if you wish to be a member and find out how to support us or get any of our dope merch, which Joe is wearing the newest one as part of the Vivek Ramaswamy fan club right here. We got a Team Vivek hat and then also the HR hats and the HR shirts. You can go to Human Reaction Pod and check that all out. And also on YouTube, that should be on the product links down below as well.
That's right.
And then also you can join our Discord where we have some dank memes, and the memes were flowing with the debate last night.
My God, there are more memes from last night than I think any other night of the year. This one we have from Joe List Comedy. It's a picture of Biden looking a little confused and maybe a little perturbed, like who knows what might have just happened. But it says above it, they have Biden's goal for the night written in the lower corner. And, well, it says live, but in this case, it means live.
Well, and actually, speaking of the debate, too, we did a live stream, the 2 of us, where we watched the debate. CNN didn't strike us down like they had kind of threatened to. So that was nice of them. Good guy, CNN. But we had a bunch of you guys on the chat, and it was super fun. It was very fun watching the chat go through and kind of make a little bit of a less energetic debate a lot more lively and interesting. So if you're still haven't seen the debate and you're planning to see the debate, check out our live feed on YouTube. We just have it up on YouTube right now. Check that out and you can watch it along with us and see it how we were seeing with how the chat was, back when we were watching it.
Absolutely. It was a really interesting debate, I think, in a lot of ways. And we're gonna do a little bit of a recap of it here in just a second. Before we get to that, though, we are excited to be headed to Las Vegas July 10th through 14th for Freedom Fest. David and I are going to be on the ground doing all sorts of reporting, getting interviews with everybody you want to hear from at that event. If you would like to join us at Freedom Fest, we would love for you to come and hang out with us. You can use the code HumanReaction50 on freedomfest.com to get $50 off your pass. Again, that's HumanReaction50 at freedomfest.com. Get $50 off your pass. We would love to hang out with you in Las Vegas.
And what are the dates on that? I'm not sure if you said the date.
July 10th through 13th. I think I might have said 14th. July 10th through 13th. Yep.
Yes. So let's get into this debate recap. We have the most important clips from the debate, I think.
I think so too.
Right? They were the substance.
Really. I think the biggest takeaway from this debate, and I don't think that it really even bears repeating because it's all over the internet. Anyone who's not living under a rock at this very moment knows the Democrats are panicking because Joe Biden, figuratively in this case, shit the bed. But I don't think this is a surprise to anyone who's been paying attention. Obviously, viewers of this show know we've been very suspect of Joe Biden's cognitive abilities for quite some time now. But this put it on display on a national scale where I think a lot of party Democrats who had maybe been turning a blind eye or drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit or just not wanting to acknowledge the age of their guy really got to see what it means for him in practice head to head with Donald Trump. And it was not good.
Well, the funny thing about it, too, is we, for so long, like people that are just, we're politically aware, we pay attention and all this stuff. We've always thought for this, it can't be Joe Biden, right? Like Joe Biden can't be the guy this election. Like he's failing.
Right.
And like cognitively, because he's old, he's 86 years old. Right. And then when they announced this debate a month ago or however long it was, we're like, oh, that's weird. They're putting it way earlier before the convention. They're like, are they actually doing this thing? Are they actually going to try to can him after the debate, after a poor performance?
Yeah, and it's a note here because normally the debates are much closer to the actual general election.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's like after the actual, like, because even though we know who the nominees are, kind of, sort of, like this Democrat one is kind of up in the air right now, and we'll kind of get into that. But usually it happens after the conventions, which is when it's like, okay, it's official. This is the nominee. Like that's like the actual symbolic, the victory. This is the nominee, and that's when the debates happen, is after the fact, right? In the month lead up, 2 month lead up to the campaign after that. But now it's like all of CNN is looking at this, and they're after the debate. They're like, Joe Biden's not doing too well. All these articles, you're just getting flooded with articles now that are just like, maybe it's time for Joe Biden to step down. And you're like, okay, they are canning him.
They are canning him.
And like all the conspiracies around that seem to be true.
Right. And I think they're playing this masterfully too. And I think we'll get into this a little bit more later, but with the panel coming in right after the debate, and there's like 9 people on this stage, all CNN pundits, mostly Democrats, all saying, holy crap, Joe Biden isn't looking good. There's no way he can carry the team through November. I think that they're really just feigning this surprise to their audience. They're trying to break it to them as if it's some sort of surprise, because they've been reporting on how cognitively resilient and sharp and focused Biden has been for the last
his age is
6
actually
months.
his superpower.
That's right. And you look at guys like Joe Scarborough, who have been just like rallying, like, Joe Biden, I can't believe people would ever impugn this man's age. He's got wisdom and experience. Okay, he's got a lot more than that too. He's got freaking dementia, and it's time for everyone in the party and in the world to recognize that if they haven't already. But the question then becomes, okay, if not Joe Biden, then who? Because Kamala is up next, technically.
I think everybody's thinking it's Newsom, right? There's the strategic value of having a Michelle Obama, which is what a lot of other people also think. I've said this on the podcast. I think that there's a calculation that the Obamas are making of not wanting her to be the person, because they don't want to ruin the Obama perfect legacy that is kind of ingrained in, that is currently going to be ingrained in American history, is that Obama was perfect, scandal-free, all this, which is, we know that's not true, right? Yeah, right.
But that's how the history was written.
That's how the history has been written around it. But the internet is now a new place, right? And all of a sudden there's all this dirty laundry that will start to get pulled up if Michelle Obama is the person. And I think that there's an actual calculation that's made around that. It was like, do we want to make that legacy tampered with?
Right, true. And also you might recall the strange story around the Obama's chef who washed up in the bay near their home in Martha's Vineyard. Mysterious death, floating naked, like huge questions. The Obamas first said they weren't home, then they were home, but blah, blah, blah. That all got swept under the rug. That was never addressed by the media. Like for more than one news
and that's
cycle.
Exactly it. Is like you're going to have...
all this is going to come back.
You're going to have this, remember the scandal-free years? Everything was nice during that. And they're like, well, Obama had a kill list. There was the Fast and Furious scandal. There was the, there was Benghazi. There was
the drone strikes. Stuff, right? Yes, exactly. It's going to taint the legacy. You're right. Well, I'll tell you what has tainted Joe Biden's legacy, and that is his performance last night. If there was a legacy, it was pretty well undone.
Well, we want to
after this.
Want to say this is a Trump ad that we're about to play.
This is a Trump ad.
This is an official Trump ad.
It is. I mean, according to the internet, at least.
I'm assuming.
I'm assuming it has the Trump branding at the end.
Yeah, we'll look at the paid for afterwards.
But basically, this is 95 seconds of Joe Biden from last night's debate.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans. The impact on the choice. The idea that they're gonna, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody.
It's painful to watch again, honestly.
When I was vice president, down to a 6.
That got the biggest reaction of Trump all night, was talking about his handicap.
Medicare for the ability for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
Yeah, so there's no paid for.
Yeah,
so I think that's probably just
yeah.
an internet thing. But in any case, that may as well be a Trump ad, honestly, because
As we all saw it. We all saw
he didn't
exactly
have
what
to
happened.
say a word. And I heard it put really well. It wasn't that Trump won the debate; it's that Joe Biden lost the debate.
Yeah.
And I think that's generally true. I mean, Trump was just kind of Trump. He was fairly reserved. You know, if anybody watched it, he's not his typical boisterous Trump rally persona. It was very much more of two guys debating somewhat, basically just taking turns talking in a room with two journalists and no audience.
Well, and that's kind of the thing too, though, is I think the reserved nature of the format, which I think the format itself kind of helped Trump in this way, showed a lot of people that have had Trump derangement syndrome in the past because they're like, he's too loud and boisterous and all this stuff. They're now seeing he's like, oh, he's actually kind of got like a sound, rational mind. He can actually be kind of like toned down and, polite in a sense, right? Where like a lot of people just don't see that because they've only looked at him through a very specific lens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like what the media will clip out of him being like very, those types of things. When it was the same thing with the All In podcast interview recently, which we talked about in our Skiff episode last week, is he was in a much more measured, very nuanced on policy. It was a very different perspective that you see him through that you're not used to seeing.
Quite true. And I think it just speaks to, well, he understands who his audience is at any given moment, right? At a rally, he's there for the everyman, for the blue collar MAGA supporter who will attend a rally like that. On the All In podcast, he's speaking to venture capitalists and tech founders and CEOs and people within that world on the West Coast. And so, he's got to tailor his messaging a little bit better. And that makes total sense to me. I don't see how Joe Biden has the cognitive ability to actually tailor a message because he is having so much trouble actually even getting a message across in the first place.
I was quite surprised he was able to comprehend questions.
True.
That was a big plus.
It was surprising, when there would be two or three things mentioned, he was able to track back and make sure he addressed each of those two or three things, which honestly was surprising. And that's a sad thing to say.
Good job, Joe.
Good job, Joe. We'll get that. We'll get to that.
We got a good clip on that.
We got a good Joe Biden quote.
Yeah. Here, this next one here is, there was a question raised about towards the end of it, that had to do with like, hey, you guys are old. What up with that? Right?
Shocker.
And it was an interesting. Let's play that clip because I think it was a very interesting and there was a funny dynamic to it.
President Biden.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's
Trump's mic is muted.
Just take a look at what he says he is and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told
Trump's
you before,
like,
I'm
nah,
happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. What? Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I had
Ever.
I've seen you swing. I know you swing. Let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
Let's not act like children.
This is a presidential
President
debate, and they are
You can see he is 6'5"
bickering about.
and only 2.
It's so funny. Like first Biden's like, yo, you're fat, man. And by the way, I have a handicap of 6. And Trump's just like, I've seen your swing. I know your swing.
Biggest lie of all.
That is the biggest lie all night, folks.
Well, and and then the internet sort of took that and ran with it. People were posting all these video clips of Trump and Biden, various places. This is from this morning, I believe. Trump playing golf. Here we go. I mean, he really spanked it.
Good sound on that one.
Good sound.
You think Biden can do that? I don't think so.
Oh, man. So, and then there was a clip somewhere else of Biden actually swinging a golf club, and it didn't look great, but whatever. He's an old man. I get it. I think it's pretty silly, actually, that this was like one of the main points of contention.
It's just so funny, though. It's just, but it was also the thing like, yeah, let's play a round of golf. I'll carry my bag if you carry your bag. You think you can do that? It's just like, that's where we're at right now. That's where we're at right
I don't think Joe Biden could carry his own bag, dude.
so either.
I'm certain that Trump could carry his own golf bag, but I really don't know how Biden would do.
Let's play the next clip here, because this is what I would call the kill shot for it, and this happened about 30 minutes into it, and it really just encapsulated the entire debate. Right here is like this one moment, and it was just one simple line from Trump. Just, I think everybody's like, oh yeah,
Sealed
that's
it.
what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
And I think that encapsulates the entire night.
It really does, because it didn't matter what Trump said after that. Everyone was pretty much just like, ugh.
Well,
yeah.
Well, and this
Yeah.
was the thing. Like I've been seeing this type of commentary on Twitter a lot over the last 24 hours since the debate, and a lot of it is, everybody's like, well, we all knew that this was the case. We all knew this was coming. Or it was just like, man, maybe Biden's actually old. And there becomes a commentary of like, yeah, a bunch of you have been living in Candyland for so long. And now you're like forced to face reality of the situation right now. Like, we've been living in this emperor has no clothes situation. And now there's a bunch of people that are just like, okay, what do we do now? Right. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Revved Up Promo, the official apparel partner of Human Reaction. Revved Up is a premier full-service shop specializing in laser engraving, screen printing, and embroidery. Not only are they now making all of our apparel right down the road from us, they can do the same for your brand and ship it to you anywhere in the world. Revved Up helps you navigate the extensive universe of merch options and uses state-of-the-art techniques to showcase your brand in its very best light. So if you want to support our show and our generous sponsor, you can now do so by buying our merch and by turning to Revved Up Promo for your own custom apparel needs. Reach them at revveduppromo.com. That's with 2 V's and 2 P's, or just check the show notes for a link. If you are a small business owner looking for exponential growth, you have to connect with Adam Thune at Intellectual Patriots. He will revolutionize your business game and help you get to the next level. Adam can streamline your business practices and advertising strategies to improve your bottom line. His expertise in data engineering means he can build you the systems you need to collect and analyze market data. His mission is to provide you with invaluable insights to fuel your success. From grant writing and business proposals to digital systems integrations, even AI management, Intellectual Patriots is a one-stop shop for cutting-edge solutions. Don't wait another second. Visit intelpatriots.com to learn more. That's INTEL patriots.com. Yeah, exactly. What do we do now is the question for the Democrats. And actually, I mean, you and I were talking before we started recording, and actually, like, for those of us that favor liberty, a Biden on the Democratic ticket,
I'm Team Biden,
is the thing we want, right? I mean, whether you're pro-Trump or otherwise, like, Biden really damages the Democratic brand.
We need to get a Biden hat. It's like, Biden, come on, man. It's
Come
like
on,
him holding
man.
up an ice cream cone.
I love that. It's a great idea. We'll work on that.
I'm Team Biden. I think that he needs to stay on the ballot. That is the best thing for the preservation of our democracy.
I agree, and I think the second best thing is for Trump to pick Vivek as his running mate.
Yeah,
Team Vivek right here. If Vivek has come out and said Trump didn't ask me to be his VP, but he didn't say I'm not his VP. So I think there's still some jockeying.
He's in the talk. Yeah.
We know that the Trump campaign is monitoring polls that take place on X and other places, and there was some polling recently from the meme account who we're fairly close with, being libertarian, right? And they posted, if Trump picked Vivek as his running mate, how many libertarians would vote for him?
Oh, it would be a massive.
It was like 85% yes.
It would be a massive upswing.
I think that would be pretty massive.
It would signal to, if it was somebody like Vivek or Tulsi Gabbard, it would be a really good signal to me of being like, okay, Trump gets it now. Like, he's not going to be as tricked as he was by a lot of people he didn't know who they were last time, and then kind of fall into all these traps. Like, he just fell into so many traps that if he just had more knowledge about things, he probably would have navigated better. Right. But he didn't have the knowledge, and I'm not saying, like, a lot of conservatives are like, but he got tricked. I was like, well, I would like him to not get tricked. Like, is that too much to ask for? But like, this would signal to me that he probably has a better understanding of what's up in Washington now, right?
Agreed, and I think there's an additional piece to that it would mean if he picks a neocon, for example, like a Marco Rubio or, God forbid, a Nikki Haley type person, it's either signaling he hasn't learned his lessons, or it's signaling he's made some kind of deal with the establishment Republicans for their support that really calls into question his dedication to the America First movement, those policies that kind of are coming along with that, all of the jockeying and promises that he's made to libertarians and liberty-minded conservatives. It really causes you to have to ask yourself, is he genuine on this stuff? And then at that point, I think all bets are off. If it's a Marco Rubio, a Nikki Haley, I mean, even Tim Scott, like
Tim
that
Scott
guy
is
has just terrible
he's a
views
vessel.
on war.
He's a vessel.
Exactly.
Remember Tucker Carlson? Like, remember that time where Tucker Carlson, like, there was the Blaze TV event. I think it was the Blaze, and they just lined up all the presidential candidates, and Tucker Carlson just like slapped him down one at a time. It was like Mike Pence, Tim Scott, like everybody just one by one, and Tucker just asking basic questions, and them just being like, wow,
just challenging them on their views.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the substance to back it up, which I think is the point, right?
Yeah, because Tim Scott was one of those guys that did really poorly in that.
He did. And so I think if Tim Scott or any one of those other people are selected as VP, it immediately turns off libertarians to the extent where RFK becomes a hell of a lot more dangerous to Trump. A hell of a lot more. Because I know people who are liberty-minded, who are very heavily considering RFK, particularly after last night he did that adjacent debate performance where he was kind of tuning into the R&D debate, right? And offering his own answers. Moderated by John Stossel, of all people, who is a libertarian of some stripe.
Very prominent libertarian who spent a lot of time on Fox News. A lot of people know him, right?
Yeah, and also on, what was it, 60 Minutes, I believe? He used to do, like, Give Me a Break or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, I think he put on a good performance.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to watch that over the weekend because, we were doing all of our stuff, so we didn't get to kind of tune into that. And I'll be very curious to see how he maneuvered, because I've seen a lot of very positive takes around it.
I have as well, and if these numbers are accurate, and this is what I've heard, is he drew about 6 million views, whereas the mainstream debate drew about 3 million views. So he did 2x the number of views.
That's wild.
Of the mainstream debate.
And it's hard to really calculate all of the internet, impressions and stuff like that. It's very hard to calculate all that because, like, I don't know where that 3 million views is coming from because there were so many
just from CNN.
Yeah, there were so many restreams because we saw on Rumble announced that it was like Tim Cast, Crowder, and somebody else were the top 3 streams, or 3 of the top 6 streams in the world last night, and it was all debate coverage.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. It could be a much larger number across all the restreams and commentary, and that's obviously what CNN was trying to fight by threatening to copyright strike anybody who restreamed their content.
I haven't heard any complaints about it actually happening.
I think it's such an uphill battle, and they would get such a pushback from that if they did, that it's just not worth their time to do. But of course, they're a sinking ship, just like most of the legacy media. They're trying to cling to as many eyeballs as they possibly can, and well, I don't think they're doing a great job of it.
We have another clip here from Jill Biden. She was congratulating her husband on his debate performance. I think that this was. Well, you'll see it for yourself.
This is hopefully not how she speaks to him at home, because otherwise their house is like a freaking daycare.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the... And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
Okay,
Yes.
dude. That is like an episode of Sesame Street right there.
Bennett, when you get back, I want you to put that on the stream deck for every time Joe does a good job on the podcast. Joe, you did such a good job. You answered every question.
I love it. I look forward to that very, very much.
And then whenever we talk about Trump, it'll be, and what did Trump do? Lie.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, we talked early in this debate recap segment about how many of us who are paying attention to this stuff saw this coming. Well, none more so than Vivek Ramaswamy, who during one of the Republican primary debates,
Nostradamus Swami, we like to call him in these parts.
Yeah, coined by Josie the Redheaded Libertarian. I think that's probably the funniest nickname I've heard this election cycle. Anyway, Nostradamus Swami basically called this exact thing, with Biden being sort of imploded.
This is back in like
strategically.
January, February, whenever
this
these
is
debates were.
Early 24.
This was like the first debate, I think, too, when he said it.
Yeah, let's have a look.
I also want to close with one message to the Democrat Party. End this farce that Joe Biden is going to be your nominee. We know he's not even the president of the United States. He's a puppet for the managerial class. So have the guts to step up and be honest about who you're actually going to put up so we can have an honest debate. Biden should step aside, end his candidacy now so we can see whether it's Newsom or Michelle Obama or whoever else.
All right,
just
Mr.
tell us the
Ramaswamy,
truth so we can have an
your
honest
time is
debate.
up. Ambassador.
I mean, you pretty much called it there. Tall order for the Democratic Party to tell the truth. So, I mean, awesome of him to ask, but I wouldn't have expected much from that. So clearly at this point, it's up to them to reveal that or to decide that. You've probably, I mean, you saw the clips of Gavin Newsom being interviewed before and after the debate, right?
Yeah.
And, playing very coy about, oh, well, you know, Biden's our guy. We got to stand behind our guy.
It's also a thing, too, like everybody's looking at Newsom and Michelle Obama as the top picks, likely, or Hillary Clinton, too. Hillary Clinton's entered the chat again, right? But there could always be like a surprise celebrity type of person that gets brought in for this, you know? There's
Oprah.
always something like that. Or I saw people were passing around a tweet. There was a bunch of re-quote tweets of an old, from like 2016, of an old CNN article, and Mark Cuban retweeting it, but it was a Mark Cuban for president back in like 2016. You could end up seeing a celebrity businessman that comes to compete with the other celebrity businessman.
You know,
type of
actually,
deal, right?
Mark Cuban Trump would be
It'd be pretty wild.
It'd be a pretty
It'd be
wild election season. I mean, but
like I haven't really been seeing people floating that idea around too much, but like there could be a surprise factor, or the Democrats could just try to manufacture some new rising star.
dude, no, that's
right?
brilliant though. Shark Tank versus The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Come on, you've
That'd
got
be
this
pretty
like
dope.
this reality TV star, business mogul kind of like dynamic. In order to fight Trump, you need a Trump analog, and Mark Cuban is as close as you're going to get.
If that happens, we are clipping the shit out of this.
Heard it here first.
Like if I called Mark Cuban,
Yeah, he's also a white guy, so like we probably got to.
but
maybe
he's
it's like
been
Draymond
this guy.
John, maybe.
You know, you have all these like big billionaire finance guys that are all now saying like, this is why I'm voting for Trump, right? Like Bill Ackman. I never thought I'd be in a timeline where Bill Ackman is calling for a rally around Trump. He was doing that last night.
Yeah, he's a party Democrat for a long time.
forever.
Yeah.
Like, and he used his what do you call it? I'm like spacing on it. Like he used his power in finance to be like this activist investor type of guy, right?
Sure.
But he's also been the guy pushing back against the woke stuff in Harvard in the last year, right?
Right.
Where Mark Cuban has been dying on the hill of DEI on
really
Twitter
has.
for the last several months.
Battling it out with Elon about
Yeah.
what DEI is and why it's actually good. And
So we could see someone like that pop up. It wouldn't be crazy to think that.
no, it certainly wouldn't be. I mean, I could certainly see the same donor class that rallied behind Biden rallying behind a Mark Cuban type figure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be interested to see if that comes true. That's enough debate recap. You guys have seen all the clips, and you know it was just as ugly as we thought it was. But in brighter news, the founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, who's been in prison for 5+ years and, hiding in an embassy and then, officially captured and put in prison, waiting extradition to the United States for the crime of putting up a website and publishing state secrets of the U.S. government and other governments that abuse their people and commit war crimes and things of that nature. He has officially been freed. He struck a deal with the U.S. government, a guilty plea on one felony count under the Espionage Act to be freed to go back to Australia to be with his wife and kids. I'm not sure he's actually even met his children, at least not, I'm
not sure, yeah.
in age. I don't know that they've ever met their father in a time in their lives when they've been old enough to know him. So it's a tremendous victory that comes at a very interesting time because the Assange conversation was really kind of popularized around the LNC and around the libertarian impact that was being levied on the Trump campaign. This was a conversation that Angela was having with the Trump campaign to try to insert this into his platform in order to court libertarian voters. And
he offered to pardon Ross Ulbricht, right?
Correct.
Which was
And-
one of those big ones. And then he said that he's looking into Julian Assange and it'll probably happen.
Right.
Like, that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from his promises there.
Exactly. And so this action ostensibly taken by the Biden administration, right? The acting, executive branch, the DOJ, basically agreed to this deal, seems to have been an effort to take the wind out of the Trump sails around these things that are gaining him libertarian votes. So whether or not that's the Democrats trying to court libertarians also, or just, take a jab at Trump.
Yeah. Take the wind out of the sails of everything that's flowing to Trump, right?
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen exactly what their calculus is. I certainly don't think they're trying to win over libertarians, certainly not with the rhetoric that came out on the stage last night. But there's another couple of things to this too, which I've seen people point out on Twitter. A part of this deal is that he had to take down everything off of WikiLeaks that had to do with the U.S. government, particularly including the DNC emails.
Yeah, the DNC emails is a very interesting thing, because if we go back to this, and we're talking about preserving our democracy, the Democrats haven't had a real primary since like Hillary versus Obama. Really. There hasn't really been a real primary since then. I think anybody paying at all attention can see that. And one of the things that was exposed in the 2016 election was how they purposely went in and tried to undermine Bernie Sanders in the bid against Hillary Clinton in the debate in 2016 when Trump came to power, right? And this is when Seth Rich died. He was mugged, and WikiLeaks had claimed that he was one of their informants.
Right.
And he got mugged, and all of his money was still there. It's also when Tulsi Gabbard was kind of the VP like the vice chair of the DNC at the time. And she was somebody that was supposed to be a very big rising star for the Democrats. And now she has been completely ostracized from the Democrats and has effectively joined Trump. Right. She's out campaigning with Trump right now. You saw her while I was up in Canada. You saw her here in Bozeman with Sheehy.
With Tim Sheehy. Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things in that moment of that WikiLeaks dump with the Hillary Clinton emails that have really spiraled into everything that we now have, right? Like, that was a very big tipping point that happened. So it's very important for the what do you call them? The deep state, the intelligence apparatus, the DNC establishment types, like all those people. It's very important for all of that.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I mean, I think it's more symbolic than anything. Obviously, as we were talking about earlier, like these documents were on the internet for years and years, right? Since 2016, basically. So, or shortly thereafter. So, I mean, like, they've been saved and archived in other places, and you can still get them even though they're not on WikiLeaks servers anymore. So that's a bit of more of a symbolic
Wayback Machine and all this stuff, right?
Right. The bigger piece is the precedent that this sets for being a journalist, exposing state secrets, abuses of one's government, being a felony. Like, that's essentially what the legal precedent is that's set here because of the way that this guilty plea had to go down. Now, it's tough to say, oh, well, I want him to stay in prison because I don't want this precedent to be set, because this guy obviously did not deserve to be in prison and deserves to be with his family and be free. And I am so happy for the man, Julian Assange, that he actually gets to go on with his life now. And I assume we will hear from him in the future. I've seen rumblings of such things. I think he's going to take some time to decompress.
Imagine a Tucker Julian Assange interview.
Oh my God.
That'd be so good.
I'm sure it's
it'll happen.
Yeah.
Because Tucker went and visited him in jail, but he wasn't allowed to record it because he actually had gone for an interview.
Right.
But he wasn't allowed to record it.
Right. So Julian Assange will be back on the scene. It's troubling though what this means for other journalists doing similar work, how the Espionage Act is going to weigh on that work. And so I think the next main thing that needs to be done is somehow addressing a rollback of the Espionage Act itself.
I'm not actually sure we mentioned this, but like, he has been found, with him being found guilty, he was sentenced a certain amount of time he had to serve in prison, but he's already served that, so that's why he's going out. So like, the guilty president now is there, right? And that's important. So like, he has served his time already, and that's why he's free now. It's not that he needs to like serve more time, right?
No, not going to jail. Yeah. Already served the time, and thank God, because I mean, this story had become elevated so clearly for so long by libertarians, by liberty-minded conservatives who saw that this was just an absolute like abuse of the First Amendment, of press freedom. Folks like Glenn Greenwald were obviously hugely important to keeping this issue in the forefront. And Stella Assange even, responded to the Libertarian Party National X account saying thank you so much for keeping these issues top of mind. So I think in an additional win for this particular scenario, a data point and a notch in the belt of the LP and Angela McArdle specifically for actually being able to accomplish something so meaningful, an issue that we've been working towards for a very long time. People have put in tons and tons of time and effort and resources on this, and it's actually bearing fruit. So I think anybody saying the LP strategy is not working they're lying to themselves. And I think the Naomi Wolf hit piece is a perfect example of somebody who is just missing the plot.
Well, and there's also, and this is maybe a bit of a black pill on Julian Assange, but it's something I think is useful to make conscious of here is, remember, Julian Assange was seen as a lefty during the Bush era, and he was seen as a right-wing figure during the Obama era. And that's an important thing to remember, because whose side he's on, with the exception of libertarians. Libertarians have always been a fan of Julian Assange, right?
For sure.
But whose side likes Julian Assange has been dependent on who the president was at the time, because of how fickle the masses tend to be when it comes to politics. So especially as future things are happening with different figures, because this isn't going to be the first or last time that this happens, right? Mm-hmm. Remember that and guard yourself and understand remember, it's about the ideas and what he's exposing that are important here. And it's not a matter of, is it your guy that is being exposed or not, right?
Right.
And he tended to be much more in line, WikiLeaks as a whole, in line with the Trump MAGA people, because there was some natural alliances there that happened. Yeah. But, once the Trump era is over and neocons might start to rise in power again, who knows, maybe. I'm just saying, there's political movements change over time. Mm-hmm. There's going to be new figures, and remember this moment, right wingers. Right. That's what I want, is remember this moment. Yes. You're on the right side right now, right?
Yes. Try to stay there. Yeah. And I think another important piece of this too, just a word of caution perhaps for people who like to identify very closely with a particular political figure or movement, i.e. Trump, MAGA, whatever, dyed in the wool blue Democrats, you name it. As soon as you tie yourself so inextricably to someone or their ideas,
you make it your identity.
It's really hard for you to maintain any objectivity and understand when that person, who is a fallible human, does something wrong. You can't distance yourself from them enough to acknowledge the fact that they've done that wrong thing. And we, as an electorate, need to be better at that, at maintaining objectivity. I think that's something that libertarians do really well, maybe almost too well, because we're never capable of actually wielding enough power by getting close enough to a particular political figure. But those in the two major parties tend to get too close. I think a lot of times they get too tribal about it, and then they lose the forest for the trees, and they can't break out.
And libertarians have their own identity problems that they'll kind of fall into, but it's different than this one. So when those come up, I criticize libertarians all the time. I'll bring those up when they happen,
for sure,
right? But this is one of those ones where I just remember when the 2016 stuff happened, people that I know hated Julian Assange were just I love this guy, it just infuriates me. You don't recognize that, no, Julian Assange hasn't changed. You changed. And you need to make that conscious and recognize that.
Right. He was consistent throughout.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I know Glenn Greenwald, who I tune into his podcast all the time, he makes this point where his allegiances have changed constantly over the last 20 years. And it's not because he's changed really at all. He's been fairly consistent in who he is. Mm-hmm. But now right wingers love him, right?
Oh yeah.
And it used to be left wingers that loved him, and it's another type of thing. And remember, he's the guy that helped with the Snowden stuff.
Right. Exactly. He was a central figure with Edward Snowden. Well, who else hasn't really changed a whole heck of a lot is Tucker Carlson. He's
the thing I appreciate about Tucker Carlson, because this is a good way to put the bow on the previous thing, is he's conscious of it and he admits where he's changed.
Amen.
And I love that about him.
I agree with that. I mean, especially around the Iraq War. Where he admits I lobbied for it, I promoted it on my network when I was on TV, and then I went to Iraq and I saw what was going on and I was appalled and I changed my view. He
explains how he changed his mind, and that's all we really want. We don't want you to be I was never like that.
Exactly.
And that's what we love. That's what we crave on the internet, is the authenticity.
Yes.
Right?
Just be real and be true and be honest and admit when you've made a mistake, because that's all that we are as humans, and we fail all the time. Just admit it to us, and don't lie to us like you think we're so dumb that we don't have the record to compare
Chris
Chris Cuomo.
Right? Like
Was it that
that is
transparent?
the opposite. Well, it just, as soon as you were talking about that, it just made me think of the Chris Cuomo stuff. I was like, that is the clear thing. Is like, that is why we appreciate Tucker, and he's become such a star on the internet, with among all of the internet people. And then Chris Cuomo is not being accepted. That is the difference.
Right. One of them exudes authenticity and the other exudes deceit and egotism. And so anyways, speaking of the man.
To kind of prop up this clip that we're about to show, Tucker he's been doing a tour around Australia, and this was actually the day that the Assange news broke.
That's correct.
And so a lot of the earlier part of the speech was him talking about Assange and the dynamics around it. So it's actually very worthwhile. I watched the entire speech. But how the speech ended was there was an Australian journalist that came up and asked a question.
Thank you very much for your address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration, and in the past you've talked about how white Australians, Americans, Europeans are being replaced by non-white immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement Theory. This is the same...
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well...
I don't think I said that.
Well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times. And
really, when did I say that?
4,000
on your
I said
show,
whites are being replaced?
You have said that before.
Really?
Yeah.
I would challenge you to cite that, because I'm pretty sure I haven't said that. I said native-born Americans are being replaced, including blacks.
Native-born Americans.
Native-born Americans.
And
Americans black Americans African Americans have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And you can't cite it.
Untrue.
So we just met, but when our relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be friends. So
you've been lying
let's
about
pull
my
that back. I'm happy to explain what I do think.
So.
Let's do that.
You actually can't say it because I didn't say it, and I don't believe it. And I'm telling you that to your face, so why don't you just accept me at face value? My concern is that the people who are born in the country are the main responsibility of its leaders. And as noted earlier, when those leaders shift their concern from the people whose responsibility it is to take care of to people around the world, to put their priorities above that of their own citizens, that's immoral. And they are being replaced in my country, people who are born in the United States. And the birth rate tells the whole story. They are not at replacement rate. And so the US population is growing because we're importing people from other countries. And my view is that happy people have children, and a functioning economy allows them to do that. And we don't have that. And so you need to fix the economy and fix the culture and make it so that people who want to have kids can. You don't just go for the quick sugar fix of importing new people. Like, that's my position. And if you think that's racist, that's your problem.
I never called you a racist.
But of course you are suggesting, and I must say, one of the reasons people don't like people like you in the media is that you never say exactly what you mean. Your slurs are all by implication, and you're about to tell me the Great Replacement Theory is racist or anti-Semitic, whatever.
We'll just go through everything.
I've said what I've said to you right now like 100 times in public. I hope to, if I live long enough, say it 100 more times. I think it's completely honest and real, not racist or scary. It's factually true. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And the whole point of your question was to be like, you're a scary racist.
Well, I haven't.
And my response is,
question.
no, I'm not. Okay, well, how about no more lying in your questions, and then I'll answer it.
Okay. Well, this is the same theory, or as you say, idea, that has inspired the New York Buffalo shooting, where 11 Americans, two white Americans were killed. It's also inspired.
It's not. First of all,
it's inspired one of the worst Australian guns
how do they
of all
get
time
people this stupid in the media? I guess it doesn't pay well. Look, I'm sorry. I've lived among people like you for too long, and I don't mean to call you stupid. Maybe you're just pretending to be, but I've never.
Dude,
I'm totally against violence. I'm totally against the war in Ukraine, for example, which doubtless you support. And like all dutiful liberals, support more carnage. I don't. I hate mass shootings, actually. Nothing I said, what does it mean to inspire something? My views are not bigoted against any group. They're honest. They're factual. That's not hate. That's reality. And my views derive from my deep concern for Americans, actually. Americans aren't having kids because they can't afford to. And nobody in charge cares. And so that's my position. That doesn't inspire mass shootings. How dare you try to tie me to some lunatic who murdered people? How dare you, actually? And in fact, I mean, do you know what I mean? I'd be like, Hitler wore those shoes. A lot of people are saying that you're like Hitler. Can you explain those shoes? Hitler wore exactly the same shoes. And you're like, I've got nothing to do with Hitler. Well, that's how I feel about your absurd, disingenuous question.
Right, so therefore you support gun control?
What? I thought it could
don't want any more
but it
shootings?
did. No, I don't support disarming law-abiding people so they can't defend themselves. So the government has a monopoly on violence? I don't think so. First of all, in my country, that's illegal, as you know. But moreover, it should be illegal in every country. A sovereign person has the right to defend himself and his family. Period. And that said, I'm totally opposed to harming anyone. Have you been calling? Are you concerned about the war in Ukraine and the countless innocents being murdered there every single day? I doubt you are. Probably Putin bad. I am. I'm a Christian. I hate violence. I hate mass shootings. I have guns at home and often on my person when I'm in the United States, I'm proud to say, because I want to defend myself and those I love against violence. That's the point. I'm not perpetrating crimes. I'm not shooting strangers. I'm defending what I love. And if you're against that, I guess I would ask why. Why would you be against that?
Well, so you don't think you harbor any kind of responsibility for these hate crimes?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be charitable. I was like, maybe you're just pretending to be dumb. Now I don't think it's an act.
That was beautiful.
I mean, also
that was just a good palate cleanser.
Beautiful and painful at the same time, I would say, because like really, maybe she's just doing her job and she's just trying to get that soundbite. She's trying to get the hit piece on Tucker, and she's not actually allowing her own intellectual brain to engage because that's not her job. Her job is to get the thing that the editor wants about Tucker to run on the news tonight.
It's like Don Lemon interviewing Elon Musk, right?
Right,
and why he's still stuck in CNN brain. It's the same type of thing. Like all of them have this way of viewing journalism when really it could just be like, hey, what do you think about this? You know, right? Like that's really, your job could actually be much easier, journalists, of just being like, hey, what do you think about this?
And you wouldn't be so universally hated either, which is a plus.
Like everyone hates you're trying to craft a narrative and it feels all like manipulative and gross. That's what people hate about journalism.
Yeah. You go into an interview, not that I've done a ton of them, but like, you know, someone that is of import will go into an interview probably feeling like, oh God, I got to be really careful with how I say what I'm going to say because I know that they're going to try to take it out of context to make it mean something that it doesn't mean to make me look bad.
Yeah. Well, Tucker he handled that great and gave good answers. Like I appreciated the answers he gave, but it was just him just being like, what?
The what moment is really, that's the cherry on top right there.
All right. That was a good little palate cleanser. And now it's actually a pretty good news week. Strangely, it's very positive this week because we got this story, or there was 2 SCOTUS decisions that came in just this morning. So we haven't really had a whole lot of time to look into it. And I think as more comes out about it, we'll probably cover it because I think that this is a really big story. So I think we're going to probably be covering this next week, probably at a much bigger length.
This is huge. And yes, we're certainly far from legal scholars. And so we will have a lot more research to do. David will be here, our friend Liam, who is a law student and has a lot of resources around him.
We'll try to get him on.
Understand these things. We'll try to get him around to talk about it. But in a nutshell, 2 big decisions came down today. Number 1, Chevron. This is Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. This case is basically the underpinning, as far as I understand it, it's the underpinning of what the sort of progressive left will use to substantiate all new regulations. Essentially, it says that the judicial branch must defer to the expertise of regulatory agencies on a given issue, like, you know, the environment, for example. And so this is like the basis. This case is the basis of a lot of the regulatory state that has ballooned so much in this country. And so this case was overturned by the Supreme Court today, 6-3, down party lines. And it's huge. It basically means that the judicial branch no longer has to defer to regulatory agencies. That's how I'm interpreting it. And there's obviously going to be more nuance and detail in that, but huge deal.
But I also think this is another thing is those Supreme Court picks really matter.
They really do.
And that might be the most important thing when you're thinking about who you're voting for on president. You might disagree on a bunch of different picks, but the Supreme Court decisions think about everything that's happened with this recent Supreme Court. And if you're kind of in the more liberty-minded view, like right-wing libertarian, conservative type of stuff, these Supreme Court picks have unraveled a lot, and they're going to continue, and in a good way. And that is going to be, these guys got brought in when they were in their 40s. They're going to be here for another 30 to 40 years, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're probably losing another Supreme Court justice in this next term. I think there's another one that's looking like they're probably
going to retire.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who
Clarence
that was.
Thomas is getting pretty up there.
That's also another thing. Clarence Thomas probably isn't going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up. But I mean, it seems like they're very active right now. They're doing a lot. I mean, obviously there have been some very controversial ones. There's the Roe overturn, pushing the abortion issue back to the states.
But here's another thing, and this kind of goes back to the changing dynamic of people's views around Trump, is a lot of these big left-wing billionaire types, people like Bill Ackman that we had mentioned earlier in the show, they're giving these rallying cries of how we need to get behind Trump, right? And one of the biggest things that I'm seeing all these guys have is, he's actually not as bad on abortion as we thought he was. The Roe v. Wade thing, it's just going to the states, and that makes sense. Like they're all changing their tone around that because apparently all these billionaire investors really care about abortion. It's like one of their biggest issues. Apparently, I strange, but very interesting. But it is one of those things where they're using that as a ploy to try to get their left-wing followers to move in a different direction now that they have changed their minds on Trump.
Okay, so contrarian question here. Why is it a good thing that the billionaire market makers are now rallying behind Trump?
It's what's interesting about it is just it's interesting that it's happening more so. Like we were talking about the All In podcast interview, right? Where you had David Sachs and Chamath Palihapitiya have a big fundraiser at at David Sachs' home, where they brought in all these San Francisco, tech people,
crypto people,
all this stuff. Yeah, you had the Winklevoss twins there that donated money. Like there was this big hubbub a couple of weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. Where that environment has been so left for so long, and it is that ideology is crumbling over there, and that's what's interesting.
Yeah,
and there might be some conspiratorial reasons why, but like I think it really is just like they were captured in a certain ideology because of the environment that they were in, and now they're shifting. Because the thing about tech folks is that there's actually a very deep libertarian ethos that so many of them have. Like we're talking about crypto people, right?
Totally. And entrepreneurs as well. And I think it's
entrepreneurs.
There's probably a very simple explanation here that when a lot of these tech founders were first getting started in San Francisco in the Bay Area, they were in their 20s. They were young. They were predisposed to be leftists.
And Berkeley is
and
right
then
there.
they built businesses worth a shitload of money, and now they have to pay a shitload in taxes, and they understand the enormous cumbersome regulatory environment in which they're required to work, particularly within crypto, which is very nebulous and very like non-concrete, and it's causing them a ton of like operational expense and headaches, and they're getting trotted in front of Congress. They're probably just growing up and growing older and realizing that's one way to view the world, but there's also another way to view the world.
That's what I think happened to Jack Dorsey, and Jack Dorsey seems to be quite libertarian in his ethos. He tweeted out Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard, right? And he's like this big Bitcoin guy, but he was in his early 20s. Like he was just running Twitter. It grew into this thing. And he was kind of like not paying attention to a lot of the inner workings that were happening in all these like weird trust and safety things. And it just wasn't part of his purview really. And he's just doing his thing. He's also running Square and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it became this thing that he had I don't think and it might be also that he just didn't have the balls to really deal with it. Yeah. And then Elon comes around and is just like, we're gutting 80% of it. Right. But so you have a lot of those types where they become very, I think a lot of people think that the CEOs have more power than they actually do because they are very controlled, especially at publicly traded companies. Mm-hmm. They're very controlled by price action. And if they make decisions that makes price action goes down, there now becomes lawsuits of you're not in your fiduciary responsibility and blah, 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 all this stuff. So when Elon takes Twitter private, well, he doesn't have to worry about fiduciary responsibility in the same way anymore, right? and then everybody looks at Twitter and they're like, well, if he gutted 80%, And then you have all these investors coming in, and they're being like, "Hey, it worked over at Twitter. Why don't you do that?" So like now it's like, oh, the CEOs have a green light to do this now.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the green light before, because how we look at stocks is like, well, how many people are you employing? Well, that's not a good metric.
Right.
What it should be is, how efficient are the employees that you're using?
Right. Exactly. What's the productivity there?
Yeah.
Not what's the head count? And I think that's also a product of the zero interest rate environment that a lot of these companies have grown up in. You've had the ability to just inflate your headcount, and that was a metric for growth, which I think is completely misguided. But I think one of the other pieces here is that Elon sort of was the tip of the spear for sort of being an activist, go fuck yourself CEO, like literally, within Silicon Valley.
What's his name over at Disney, right?
Well, he said it to Bob Iger when he was on the pitch, whatever it's called. Anyway. So Elon kind of led that charge there and sort of opened the doors for, I think, some of these companies to be a little bit more dismissive of a lot of the woke culture that had permeated a lot of these companies, just by virtue of the fact that tech jobs are very desirable. They're in the Bay Area. It's a very liberal area, all that stuff.
I think some of it too is these types of people, they follow market trends, but like cultural trends are kind of like market trends. You have your peaks and valleys, and they're seeing where the waves are moving, and they are jumping on board the new boat, because that is kind of the job of these people, is to understand the waves and understand what boats to jump onto.
Right. At the end of the day, they're trying to make money. So where are the people moving? Where is the attitude shifting to and from? And I mean, I think the momentum very much has shifted right.
Yeah.
Not just in this country, as we've talked about at length. All over the world, populist movements are cropping up in opposition to the statist globalist movements that are trying to put humans in a box and contain us and put us in these 15-minute cities or whatever, or limit us from using this kind of energy or that kind or whatever. Like, all of that stuff is being resisted at almost every human level, and it's the best thing to see, and I'm super white-pilled about it.
Oh, also, that's actually probably a good pitch for an interview that we have coming out soon. It'll be coming out after this episode. We just recorded it with a German psyops specialist who talked a lot about these right-wing nationalist movements that are popping up all over across Europe. And, that's been a kind of a theme that we've been hitting on in recent months as well.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be a very fun interview. It was a very fun interview to record.
It was. And it's going to be a great listen, and we will certainly be chatting with her more. It'll be available to members early. So if you're not a member and you would like to be, go to humanreactionpod.com. You can see all the options for supporting us, either on YouTube or on Substack. Both of those options get you access to some of our exclusive content, as well as early releases of our public content.
Yeah, and we might not promote it enough, actually, because there's we're doing extra content for the people that are supporting us in that way. Like we do another hour to an hour and a half of show after this podcast typically.
and we have heard from some of our members that they will only consume that stuff going forward, or they only want to consume that stuff because it has a different tone. We're a little bit more free.
We're more loosey-goosey. We're a little bit less worried about the other things, right?
All of the censorship stuff.
And we have Substack as a backup now too. Like
That's right.
It's nice to be able to kind of back all that stuff up on, because still on the members side on YouTube, we'll get hit with demonetization on most of those episodes actually. But it we're going to less people, and you guys are paying us for the content, so we're not worried about that.
Exactly. And to be clear, membership to get the exclusive stuff starts at $3 a month.
Yeah.
It's not a lot. So if you want to jump in, that's the option on YouTube. Substack is $8. If you want to go all the way in, our top tier nuclear reactor tier is $15 a month. Gets you a free merch drop once per year. So we're coming up on that this year.
Yeah, we're waiting for a few more people to funnel in, and we're going to start working on that.
That's right. That's right. So maybe sometime after Freedom Fest.
I know some of our members are like, "Where's my merch, Kyle?" I was like, "Hey, just hold on.
Give it time.
We want to. You were our first 3 members. Let us build this a little bit.
We need to let the money hit the bank account first, guys. To be real, okay. Awesome. Well, hey, I think this has been a great show. Kyle, any last words before we sign off?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing how all this stuff starts to pan out. Very positive news week. Very curious as we learn more about the Supreme Court case here. So looking forward to it. And that's it.
Awesome. One more time, if you'd like to join us at Freedom Fest, freedomfest.com. Use the promo code HumanReaction50 for $50 off your pass. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We will see you next week. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com. And remember,
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.